The diesel roars. Tracks clank against frozen ground. Inside the German Tiger, it smells of machine oil and sweat. The gunner looks through his scope. 5 Shermans, 30 tons each, weak armor, 75-millimeter gun, a toy against his 88-millimeter. He smiles. Easy targets. The Tiger commander raises his hand. He's about to give the order. The slaughter is about to begin. But the first shot doesn't come from where he's looking. It comes from the left, then the right, then from behind. The Shermans are moving. They're not charging head-on. They're circling, like wolves around a bear. The commander screams something into the radio. The radio is silent. Static. Interference. Nothing. He's alone. 4 minutes later, his tank is burning. 5 minutes later, he's dead. This didn't happen once. This happened thousands of times. Western Front. 1944. German Tigers and Panthers, the best tanks in the world, burned one after another. They were killed by weaker, lighter, more vulnerable American Shermans. How? German generals couldn't understand. Rommel wrote reports to Berlin. Guderian lost sleep. One phrase appeared in their reports again and again. American tanks move like a single organism. They see everything. They react instantly. They act in coordination. The Germans looked for the answer in armor, in engines, in infantry tactics. They were looking in the wrong place. The answer was in a small metal box the size of a suitcase. It sat in every Sherman. The Germans couldn't see it, but it saw everything. SCR 508. Radio station, 300 channels. Frequency modulation, 20-kilometer communication range. Sounds boring? It was the deadliest weapon of World War II. While German engineers stamped out thicker armor, American engineers created an invisible network. While Hitler boasted about impenetrable steel, Americans built something that couldn't be penetrated: coordination. Every Sherman could talk to every Sherman. Every tank commander heard every platoon commander. Every platoon, every company, every division, in real time, without interference, without delays. Germans waved flags. Americans spoke over radio. Germans fought alone. Americans fought as a swarm, and the swarm always wins. Today, you'll learn a story that isn't written in textbooks. A story about how the war was won, not on battlefields, but in the airwaves. How engineers from New Jersey created a weapon Hitler couldn't even imagine. This is the story of how radio waves killed tanks and changed the world. But to understand what happened in those 4 minutes of battle, we need to go back 3 years, to a research laboratory at Signal Corps, where a handful of engineers were solving a problem that the fate of the war depended on, a problem no one spoke about out loud. 1941, Washington, War Department. In a darkened room, 20 officers sit and watch newsreels. On screen, France, May 1940. German tanks move through the Ardennes. They're not just driving, they flow, like water, like an avalanche. Entire divisions turn simultaneously, change direction in minutes. The French don't even have time to understand where the front is. 6 weeks. France fell in 6 weeks. One of the officers stops the film, rewinds, plays again. He's not looking at the tanks. He's looking at the antennas, at the signal flags, at motorcyclists darting between machines. The Germans are winning not because they have better tanks. They're winning because they can hear each other. The lights come on. A general places a folder on the table. Inside are reports from British observers, from Polish refugees, from French officers who survived the defeat. Everyone says the same thing. The German army moves as a single entity. Orders are transmitted instantly. Columns reorganize on the move. Tanks support infantry with minute precision. Now let's look at the American Army. Louisiana maneuvers. Summer 1941. The largest exercises in U.S. history. 400,000 men. Thousands of vehicles. Hundreds of tanks. Total chaos. A tank column receives an order to turn north. The battalion commander learns about it an hour later. Half the tanks have already gone south. A messenger on a motorcycle tries to catch them. He got lost. The enemy breaks through the flank. Reserves are standing 5 kilometers away. They could arrive in 20 minutes. They arrive in 3 hours. Because no one told them. A division commander issues an order. The order is written on paper. A jeep carries the paper. The jeep got stuck in mud. The order arrived when the battle was already over. Imagine an orchestra. 100 musicians. But the conductor can't shout to them. Everyone plays their own melody. This isn't music. This is noise. The American Army was such an orchestra. The problem wasn't new. World War I showed this. Tanks appeared in 1916, but they were blind and deaf. A commander inside a tank couldn't see anything except a narrow slit, couldn't hear anything except the engine roar. Tanks broke defensive lines, but then they got lost, got stuck, drove the wrong way, shot their own, because there was no communication. The British tried carrier pigeons. Pigeons died from exhaust fumes. They tried flags. Flags weren't visible in smoke. They tried signal flares. Flares were confused with enemy ones. The Germans solved the problem first. Every command tank had a radio. Not all of them. Not in every platoon, but in key vehicles. That was enough for Blitzkrieg. Americans studied German experience, did calculations. The numbers were horrifying. A tank without communication in battle is 20% effective. It only sees what's in front of it. It only knows what it learned before battle. Everything else is improvisation and luck. A tank with communication is 80% effective. It sees through the eyes of the entire platoon. It knows where the enemy is, where allies are, where to move, when to shoot. The difference isn't fourfold. The difference is between victory and defeat. Fall of 1941, one colonel wrote a memo to the chief of staff. It had lots of numbers, lots of tables, lots of technical details, but the essence was in one sentence. We will lose this war if we don't teach our tanks to talk. The memo landed on a desk, was read, approved, passed along. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. America entered the war. And suddenly this memo wasn't just paper. It became either a sentence or salvation. The memo was passed to Signal Corps, Army Communications Division, headquarters at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. They didn't employ generals there. They employed engineers. And one of them was about to create a weapon Hitler didn't even suspect existed. Fort Knox, Kentucky, January 1943, 10 degrees below freezing. The training ground is covered in ice. 30 Shermans stand in a row. Engines off. Inside each one, a crew of 5 men. They haven't slept in 20 hours. This isn't punishment. This is training. An instructor stands on a tower with a stopwatch. He raises his hand. Whistle. 30 engines roar simultaneously. A voice on the radio. Clear. No emotion. Alpha platoon. Move north. Distance 200. Wedge formation. 5 tanks leap forward. They don't drive in column. They fan out. 30 seconds later, they're in position. Bravo. Flank right. Charlie cover. Delta reserve. 25 tanks move. No fuss. No flags. No motorcyclists. Just voices in headphones and tanks flowing across the training ground like water. The instructor looks at the stopwatch, clicks his tongue. 45 seconds from order to execution. A year ago, this would have taken 20 minutes. The American Army was rewriting the rules of war, and it started with the tanker's head. The old doctrine was simple. A tank is a moving gun. Find the enemy. Shoot first. Shoot more accurately. Win. The new doctrine said something different. A tank is a network node. You're not alone. You're never alone. Your job isn't to kill the enemy. Your job is to give information to whoever will kill him. See an enemy tank, report position. Take a hit, report damage. Find a weak spot, report to everyone. Hear an order, execute immediately. Sounds simple. It was incredibly difficult. Inside a Sherman, the noise is like a boiler room. Engine roaring, tracks clanking, gunfires, ears pop, hatches open, wind whistles, hatches closed, heat over 100 degrees. And in this chaos, you must hear the radio. Understand commands. Answer clearly, quickly, without mistakes. One garbled call sign, and a shell lands in the wrong place. One wrong digit, and a tank drives into an ambush. 1 second of delay, and the enemy escapes. That's why training was brutal. Crews learned call signs by heart, like multiplication tables. Alpha 1-6, Bravo 3-2, Command 0, without hesitation, without thinking. Even when it's 100 degrees inside the tank and you haven't slept for 2 days. They were taught to report in 3 seconds. Contact, direction, distance. Everything else is unnecessary. Contact, 2 o'clock, 400, 3 seconds. All the information. The commander is already issuing orders. They were taught to listen to 3 channels simultaneously. Platoon commander in one earpiece, company commander in the other. Their own crew through internal comms. The brain had to filter what's important, what's secondary, what to ignore. It's like listening to 3 conversations in a crowded bar and participating in all 3. But here, a mistake costs lives. They were taught new tactics. The Germans called it contemptuously Amerikanische Rudeltaktik. American pack tactics. The essence was simple and deadly. One tank encounters an enemy Tiger. Doesn't shoot. Reports position. Withdraws. Tiger pursues. Thinks the American chickened out. Second Sherman appears from the flank. Shoots at the side. Didn't penetrate. Withdraws. Tiger turns around. Now he's angry. Third Sherman hits from behind. Into the engine compartment. Tiger burns. 3 tanks. 40 seconds. 1 dead Tiger. Without radio, this is impossible. 3 tanks wouldn't know where each other are. Couldn't coordinate the attack. The first Sherman would meet the Tiger one-on-one and would burn. With radio, this was an execution. Instructors repeated one mantra. Don't be a hero. Be part of the system. The system kills. Heroes die. At the Fort Knox training ground, they rehearsed scenarios again and again. Tiger in ambush, Panther in open terrain, Pack 40 in bushes. Each time crews had to act as one organism. See, report. Hear order. Execute. Don't think. Don't play hero. Trust the system. One veteran recalled training like this. The first week we didn't understand why this was necessary. The second week we were angry. It seemed like they were teaching us to be cowards. The third week we started to feel it. You're in a tank, but you're not alone. You see through someone else's eyes. You hear what's happening over the hill. You're part of something bigger. By the 4th week, we became dangerous. Statistics showed results. Crews trained under the new program destroyed the enemy 3 times more often in training battles. Losses were cut in half. But the most important thing wasn't in the numbers. The most important thing was in the voices. When you listen to recordings of radio communications from exercises, you hear it. No panic. No chaos. Short phrases. Clear commands. Absolute calm. Like surgeons during an operation. Scalpel. Clamp. Suture. No unnecessary words. German tankers trained to shoot more accurately. Hit on the first shot. Kill with 1 shell. American tankers trained to talk faster. Report in 3 seconds. Coordinate an attack in 30. Guess who won the war? By spring 1944, the American Army was ready. Tens of thousands of tankers completed the new program. Thousands of Shermans equipped with SCR 508. Doctrine honed to automaticity. All that remained was to test it all in real combat, against real Germans, against real Tigers and Panthers. The test began on June 6th, in Normandy, and the very first day showed, theory works, but the price would be high. June 6th, 1944. D-Day +0. Normandy. A Sherman crawls out of a landing craft. Water up to the turret. Engine chokes but keeps running. Tracks grip the sand. The tank crawls onto Omaha Beach. Hell all around. Shells explode in the water. Machine guns rattle from bunkers. People scream. Someone drowns 30 meters from shore. The whole beach is in smoke. Tank Commander Lieutenant Kelly turns on the radio. Hissing. Interference from explosions. Then a voice. Clear. Precise. All tanks, Battalion Commander. Move to Sector Dog Green. Suppress pillboxes on height 115. Open formation. Execute. Kelly hears every word, as if the commander is sitting next to him, not a kilometer away in the chaos of the landing, right next to him. Charlie 2-1 understood. Moving. 5 Shermans crawl across the beach. They don't bunch up. They fan out. Each covers the neighbor. Each sees their sector. A German pillbox opens fire. MG-42 machine gun. 1,200 rounds per minute. Tracers ricochet off Sherman armor. Contact. 10 o'clock. Pillbox in bunker. Distance 300. 3 seconds, Kelly reported. Platoon commander already responds. Charlie 2-3. High explosive. Coordinates transmitted. Others. Smoke. 2 Shermans fire smoke rounds. A white wall covers the pillbox. 3rd Sherman shoots high explosive into the embrasure. Direct hit. Pillbox falls silent. 20 seconds. From contact to destruction. This doesn't look like Fort Knox exercises. Here are real bullets. Real blood. Real fear. But the system works. Voices in headphones are calm. Commands clear. No one panics. Kelly would later write one phrase in a letter home. I didn't feel lonely. Even in the hell of the landing, I heard my guys. That saved my life. But the real test didn't start on the beaches. It started in the hedgerows. Bocage. That's what the French called this terrain. Living hedges. But these aren't hedges. These are walls. 3 meters high. Roots go a meter into the ground. Dense as concrete. Between them, narrow country roads. Visibility 30 meters. Maximum. Perfect place for ambushes. The Germans knew this land. Knew every path. Every turn. They dug in pack 40s behind hedges. Put Panthers at intersections. Waited. American tanks entered Bocage like entering a labyrinth. Turn after turn. Hedge after hedge. You can't see what's 30 meters from you. You could drive past an enemy tank and not notice. This should have been a massacre. The Germans waited for it, prepared for it, but Americans brought eyes and ears with them. June 10th. Village of Sainte-Mère-Église. A platoon of Shermans moves along a narrow road between hedges. Lieutenant Harris in the lead tank. He can't see past the turn, but he hears. All vehicles, recon reports. Panther in ambush, coordinates Echo 47, waiting at crossroads. Voice of an infantry lieutenant. His scouts found the Panther, sitting in bushes 200 meters away. Germans don't see them, but transmitted coordinates by radio. Harris looks at the map. Crossroads ahead. If he drives straight, Panther will shoot up the platoon point blank. Old tactics. Drive forward. First tank burns. Second turns around. Third tries to go around. Panther kills everyone one by one. New tactics. Different. Charlie 1-2 and 1-3. Detour left through field. 1-4 with me. Smoke on crossroads. 1-5. Reserve. 2 Shermans turn off the road. Break through the hedge. Drive through the field. Make a detour. Germans don't see them. Harris with one more tank crawls to the crossroads. Fires smoke rounds. White wall. Panther shoots blind. Miss. 2 Shermans appear from the flank. Panther has turret turned the wrong way. They hit the side. First shell didn't penetrate. Second penetrated. Third ignited the ammunition. Panther explodes from inside. Turret tears off and falls 10 meters away. The German crew didn't even understand where they were killed from. The whole operation took 3 minutes. Without radio, it would have been impossible. Scouts couldn't have transmitted information. Tanks couldn't have coordinated the bypass. First, Sherman would have burned at the crossroads. With radio, this was a surgical operation. Bocage turned into a nightmare for Germans. They set ambushes. Americans bypassed them. They hid tanks. American infantry found them and transmitted coordinates. They tried to counterattack, ran into coordinated fire from 3 sides. One German tanker who survived an ambush near Carentan was captured. During interrogation, he was asked why he surrendered. He didn't answer right away. Stared at the table, then said, "They don't fight. They hunt. You don't see all of them. You see one. Shoot at him." He leaves. Another appears. From a different side. You turn around. He leaves too. Then a third hits you from behind. You understand. They knew where you were. All the time knew. You're not an enemy to them. You're prey. German commanders began to understand the scale of the problem. Their tanks were better. Their guns more powerful. Their armor thicker. But Americans saw the entire battlefield, and Germans only saw what was in front of them. One Tiger sits in ambush, sees 2 Shermans, destroys both, thinks he won, doesn't know that behind the hill 5 more Shermans received coordinates and are already coming from the flank. One Panther breaks through defenses, goes into the rear, sows panic. But Americans already know where it is. Every tank, every infantry squad, every artillery battery receives its position every 30 seconds. Panther is surrounded and destroyed in 20 minutes. Germans fought like knights, one-on-one. Fair fight. Better machine wins. Americans fought like wolves. Pack against loner. Information against armor. By the end of June, statistics were murderous. Germans lost tanks faster than they could produce them. Not because Sherman was better, but because 5 Shermans acting in coordination killed any German tank. Rommel wrote a report to headquarters. It had a phrase that was read with disbelief. The enemy possesses tactical omniscience. They know the position of our forces in real time. Our counterattacks are broken before they begin. Berlin replied that this was impossible. Rommel didn't insist. He just asked for reinforcements. There were no reinforcements. There were only new losses. German command began to realize. The war had changed. This is no longer a duel of tanks. This is a war of systems. And Americans have a better system. But the worst for Germans was ahead. Because soon Americans would show what full coordination at the level not of a platoon, not of a company, but of an entire army could do. And then the word blitzkrieg would get a new meaning. Let's talk about numbers. Cold, brutal, relentless. Summer 1944. Western Front. American Army has about 4,000 Sherman tanks in Europe, each one with an SCR 508 radio or its modification. Each can talk. Each can hear. 100%. Full connectivity. Germany has about 2,000 tanks on the Western Front. Tigers, Panthers, Panzer IVs. Of these, only 20% are equipped with radios. 1 tank in 5. The remaining 80% are deaf and blind. Imagine a football team. 11 players have headphones. Coach sees the whole field. Issues commands. Players hear, react, reposition. The opposing team has headphones only on 2 players. The other 9 hear nothing. Play as best they can. Hope for the best. Who wins? But this isn't football. This is war. And the price of defeat isn't points on a scoreboard. The price is lives. German tank platoon, 5 vehicles, 1 command with radio. The other 4 must follow it. Watch for signals. Guess intentions. Command tank is knocked out. Communication lost. The other 4 don't know what to do. They only see what's in front of them. Don't know where the enemy is, where friendlies are, where to retreat. They improvise, panic, die. American platoon in the same situation. Commander killed. Deputy immediately takes command. Voice on radio. New orders. Platoon continues to function, without pause, without chaos. This isn't heroism. This is system. System doesn't depend on one person. System works even when nodes fail. Germans built an army of heroes. Americans built an army of system. Heroes die. System survives. July 1944. Operation Cobra. Americans prepare breakthrough from Normandy. Goal: tear German defenses. Break out into operational space. Start race to Paris. Ambitious plan. 1,500 tanks must break through on a 7-kilometer section. Behind them, infantry, artillery, supply. Everything must move in coordination, simultaneously, without delays. 20 years ago, this was impossible. 10 years ago, fantasy. Even 5 years ago, no one would have dared. But now, every tank hears every order. Every commander sees the whole picture. Every unit knows where it is in the overall plan. July 25th, 6 in the morning. Airstrike begins. 2,500 bombers blanket German positions. Earth burns. 1,100 hours. Tanks begin movement. 1,500 Shermans crawl forward. They don't drive in a mob. They move in waves. First wave breaks through defenses. Second widens the breakthrough. Third goes deep. Coordination perfect, like clockwork. At American Army headquarters, officers sit and listen to radio communications. Hundreds of voices, thousands of commands, but no chaos. There's rhythm. There's order. General Collins listens and shakes his head. He remembers Louisiana maneuvers. 3 years ago. Remembers chaos. Remembers disorder. Now he hears a symphony. 1st Division. Breakthrough complete. Moving to Marigny Line. 2nd Division. Flank secured. Continuing advance. 3rd Division. Contact with enemy. Coordinates transmitted to artillery. Every 30 seconds, the situation updates. Every minute, plans are adjusted. The Army thinks. The Army adapts. The Army lives. 30 kilometers from headquarters, a German tanker sits in a Panther and doesn't understand what's happening. An hour ago, his platoon stood in defense. Then bombing started. Then American tanks appeared. From somewhere on the left. From somewhere on the right. They bypassed the strong point. How did they know where the weak spot was? Platoon commander tried to contact headquarters. Radio doesn't work. Tried to contact neighbors. Of 5 platoon tanks, only he has radio. The others don't hear. He waves a flag. Shows, we're withdrawing. 2 tanks see. Turn around. 3 others don't see. Continue shooting. Americans surround them. 20 minutes later, of 5 platoon tanks, only 1 remains. Command tank. He's alone. Enemies all around. Radio silent. Headquarters doesn't respond. Maybe headquarters doesn't exist anymore. He makes a decision. Retreats. Drives blindly. Hopes to find his own. Finds American checkpoint. Surrenders. During interrogation, they'll ask him why Germans couldn't hold the defense. He'll answer simply, "We didn't know what was happening. We only saw our sector. They saw everything." Operation Cobra lasted a week. In a week, Americans broke through a front 50 kilometers wide, advanced 100 kilometers deep, destroyed 2 German armies. Germans tried to counterattack, but every counterattack fell apart because Americans saw it an hour before it started. Moved reserves. Met Germans with organized fire. Coordination against improvisation. System against bravery. Bravery lost. Now, imagine yourself in place of a German tanker. Imagine for real. You're sitting in a Tiger. Around you, 5 Shermans. Your tank is better. Your armor thicker. Your gun more powerful. You can kill any of them with one shot, but you have no communication. Radio broke, or you never had one. You're alone. They're not alone. They talk to each other. They know where you are. They coordinate the attack. One distracts. Second flanks. Third waits for the moment. You turn the turret. Shoot. Hit. One Sherman burns, but the other 4 are already moving. You don't have time to reload the gun. Shell comes from left. Ricochet. Shell from right. Hit. Armor holds. Third shell in the side. Penetration. Fire inside. Smoke. Screams. You had 3 minutes to live. From the moment Sherman surrounded you. 3 minutes. Because you were alone. And they were a pack. By fall 1944, German command finally understood. Understood for real. It's not about tank quality. Not about crew bravery. Not about tactical training. It's that Americans are fighting in the 21st century, and Germans in the 19th. One German general wrote a phrase in his diary that was found after the war. We didn't lose a battle. We lost evolution. Rommel was more direct. In August 1944, he wrote a letter to Hitler, asked for peace, said the war was lost. Among the arguments was one line. The enemy doesn't surpass us in numbers. He surpasses us in ability to see the battlefield. We fight blind. They see everything. Hitler ignored the letter. Rommel was wounded in an air raid a week later. Later, they would force him to commit suicide for connection with conspirators. But his words remained, and they were truth. Germans could build thicker armor, more powerful guns, faster tanks, but they couldn't build what Americans had already built. A network. An invisible web of voices connecting every tank, every soldier, every commander. Americans didn't invent a better tank. They invented a better army. And this army rolled east, toward Germany, toward the end of the war. But before the end, there would be one more battle, one pocket, one massacre, where the German army would suffocate in its own silence, and this would happen in 3 weeks. Near the town of Falaise, August 1944, Normandy, German army trapped, 2 armies, 7th and 5th Panzer, 100,000 men, thousands of vehicles, hundreds of tanks, everything Germany has left in France. They're surrounded. From north, British and Canadians pressing. From south, Americans. From west, the sea. From east, Americans closing the last corridor. The pocket tightens. Area of encirclement, 30 kilometers by 20, and getting smaller every hour. Germans understand this. Headquarters issues order, retreat, break through to the east, while corridor hasn't closed completely. While there's a chance, order given, remains to execute it. And here the nightmare begins. Imagine you're a German division commander. You have 10,000 men, hundreds of vehicles, 20 tanks. You received order, retreat through Falaise, coordinates indicated, route clear. But you have no communication with neighboring divisions. You don't know who's on the left, who's on the right, who's ahead, who's already retreating, who's still holding positions. You have no communication with Army headquarters. Last message came 6 hours ago. Since then, silence. Maybe headquarters retreated, maybe destroyed. You have no communication with most of your tanks. Of 20 vehicles, only 4 have radios. The rest must follow you. See your signals. Guess the route. You begin retreat and enter hell. Road is jammed. Thousands of vehicles trying to drive on a narrow country road simultaneously. Trucks, tanks, guns, horse-drawn carts, everything mixed into one chaos. No one knows who has priority. No one can coordinate movement. Columns collide, get stuck, traffic jams form. You try to contact someone. Radio silent. You send a motorcyclist with an order. He leaves and doesn't return. Killed or lost, unknown. You make decision yourself. Bypass traffic jam through field. Half the division follows you. Half doesn't see and continues standing in traffic. Division falls apart. Before your eyes. And at this time, American headquarters sees everything. General Bradley stands before a map. On the map, in real time, German columns are marked. Dozens of reports come every 5 minutes. Reconnaissance transmits coordinates. Aviation confirms. Tank units report contacts. Artillery receives targets. System works. Information flows. Decisions are made. Germans moving on Falaise Argenton Road. 3 columns. Coordinates transmitted to aviation. Understood. Bombers airborne in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. From detection to strike. Germans don't know this. They just drive. Hope to slip through. Hope they won't be noticed. First wave of bombers appears at noon. 200 aircraft. They drop bombs on columns. Road explodes. Vehicles burn. Tanks flip over. People run into fields. Hide. But bombs find them there too. German commander tries to reorganize column. Issues orders. Waves arms. Shouts. But no one hears. Roar of aircraft. Explosions. Screams. Half his subordinates don't even see him. They're 300 meters down the road, cut off by burning trucks. They don't know what to do. Stand. Wait for command. Command doesn't come. They're killed while they wait. By evening, Falaise roads turn into a graveyard of equipment. Thousands of vehicles abandoned. Hundreds burning. Bodies between them. Germans abandon heavy equipment. Take only weapons. Try to break through on foot. Small groups. Through forests. Through fields. But Americans know where they are. Every group tracked. Every detachment intercepted. Infantry reports coordinates. Tanks receive orders. Artillery adjusts fire. All in real time. Germans can't coordinate even a breakout attempt. Individual groups attack at different times, in different places, without support, without communication with each other. They're ground down piecemeal. August 17th. Canadians and Americans meet at village of Chambois. Corridor closed, pocket sealed. Inside remain 50,000 Germans. Maybe more. No one knows exactly. Even German command doesn't know, because there's no communication. German General von Klug tries to organize breakout, issues orders by radio, but they don't hear him. Transmitter too weak, interference too strong. Orders don't reach. He sends officers in vehicles with written orders. Vehicles come under fire, don't arrive. Orders remain unexecuted. He tries to coordinate several divisions for simultaneous attack on one sector. Break encirclement with concentrated strike. But divisions don't hear each other. One attacks at 6 in the morning, another at noon. Third doesn't receive order at all. Attack falls apart. Americans repel every attempt, easily, because they see it in advance. Move forces. Meet with organized fire. Inside pocket, there's chaos. Units mixed. Commanders lost control. Soldiers don't know where friendlies are, where enemies are, where to retreat. Radio silent. Phone lines cut. Messengers killed. Only one thing remains. Look around and hope. Hope dies quickly. August 18th. American artillery begins methodical shelling of pocket. Every square on map receives portion of shells. Systematically, without hurry, simply destroying everything alive inside perimeter. Coordination perfect. Observers transmit coordinates. Batteries fire. Adjust. Fire again. Like at exercises. Germans can't respond. Their artillery either destroyed or doesn't know where to shoot. No one to transmit target coordinates. No one to coordinate fire. They just die. Under shells, under bombs, under machine gun fire. August 19th. mass breakout attempts begin. Thousands of people rise and run east, to narrow passage between American and Canadian positions. Passage 2 kilometers wide. 50,000 people trying to pass through it. Simultaneously, Americans set up machine guns on heights, ranged in artillery. Just waited. Germans run, in a mob, without formation, without cover, just run. Hope to get lucky. They don't get lucky. Machine guns mow down first ranks. Artillery covers middle. Those behind crush those in front. Those in front fall into craters. Everything turns into carnage. Maybe 10,000 break through the passage. Maybe less. The rest remain. Dead. Wounded. Captured. By evening of August 20th, it's over. Pocket eliminated. 50,000 Germans killed or captured. Another 10,000 broke through, without equipment, without weapons, demoralized. 2 German armies ceased to exist. American losses in Falaise operation, 3,000 men. 50,000 versus 3,000. 17-1. This isn't a battle. This is an execution. After the war, military historians would argue, could Germans have avoided catastrophe? Could they have broken through earlier? Could they have coordinated retreat better? Answer is simple. No, they couldn't. Because coordination requires communication. And there was no communication. Rommel, who by that time was already wounded and lying in hospital, wrote one phrase in his diary. It was found after his death. We lost the war in the airwaves. Everything else is details. He was right. Germans built the best tanks, trained the best tankers, developed the best tactics. But they fought like in the last war. Every commander made decisions himself. Every unit acted autonomously. Every soldier saw only his sector of front. Americans fought like in the future war. Every commander knew the overall picture. Every unit was part of system. Every soldier was a network node. At Falaise, 2 philosophies of war collided. Individualism against collectivism. Bravery against coordination. 19th century against 20th. 19th century lost. Catastrophically. War ended 9 months later. Germany capitulated. But outcome was decided here, on Normandy roads, where German soldiers died in silence. While American soldiers heard voices of their comrades, Falaise became a symbol of what happens to an army that can't speak, that can't hear, that fights alone. Such an army doesn't lose a battle. It simply ceases to exist. War ended. Sherman tanks went to warehouses. SCR 508 removed from production. Veterans returned home. But what they brought back from Europe changed war forever. And we see these changes still. May 1945. War in Europe ended. Sherman tanks stand in squares of German cities. Engines off. Guns silent. Inside each one, small box SCR 508. It's no longer needed. War's over. But revolution was just beginning. Military analysts sat at tables, started counting, analyzing, understanding what actually happened. Numbers were shocking. Sherman versus Tiger, 1-on-1, lost in 80% of cases. Armor weaker, gun weaker, speed same. All advantages with German. 5 Shermans versus 1 Tiger with radio communication, won in 95% of cases. Math is simple. Communication was worth 20 millimeters of additional armor, 50 millimeters of gun caliber, 10 tons of tank weight. But communication weighed 30 kilograms and cost $500. Cheapest weapon of war turned out to be most effective. Generals understood this. Quickly, clearly, unconditionally. New doctrine appeared even before war ended. Every combat unit must have communication. Doesn't matter. Tank, aircraft, ship, or infantry squad. Communication mandatory. Always. Everywhere. Army without communication isn't an army. It's a mob with weapons. Korea. 1950. American M46 Patton tanks enter battle, each one with radio station. North Korean T-34s, Soviet tanks, best at the time, fight the old way. One commander with radio per 5 vehicles. Result predictable. Americans dominate. Not because their tanks are better, but because their system is better. Soviets draw conclusions. 5 years later, every Soviet tank receives radio station. Lesson learned. Vietnam, 1960s. Helicopters change war, but not helicopters themselves, but communication they provide. Infantry squad in jungle sees enemy, calls fire from helicopter in minutes. Air-ground coordination becomes standard. This is Sherman's legacy. Idea that every fighter is part of network. That information is more important than armor. Gulf War, 1991. American M1. Abrams tanks destroy Iraqi T-72s with ratio of 100 to 1. 100 Iraqi tanks per 1 American. Why? Abrams has better armor? Yes. Better gun? Yes. But main thing, it has battle management system. Computers, radars, satellite communication. Every Abrams knows where every other Abrams is. Every commander sees battlefield on screen. Every unit receives targets automatically. This is Sherman on steroids. Same idea. Just technologies advanced 50 years. History repeats. Just technologies change. Today, this idea reached absolute. Modern army is a network. Satellites see battlefield. Drones transmit video in real time. Every soldier has tablet with map and friendly positions. Tank is no longer just a vehicle with gun. Tank is network node. Sensor. Information transmitter. System command executor. Fighter pilot sees targets detected by ship 300 kilometers away. Artillery shoots at coordinates transmitted by drone. Infantry attacks knowing exactly where enemy is, thanks to satellite. All this started with SCR 508, with small box in Sherman, with idea that army should be organism, not collection of heroes. Organism. Engineers from Signal Corps didn't plan this. They just solved problem. How to make tanks talk to each other. They didn't know they were creating future of war, but they created it. There's old military saying, amateurs study tactics, professionals study logistics. Need to add third line. Geniuses study communication. Because best tactics is useless if it can't be executed. Largest army is powerless if it can't coordinate actions. Most powerful weapon is useless if you don't know where to shoot. Germans understood this too late, when their Tigers burned under Sherman fire, when their armies suffocated in pockets, when war was already lost. They built wonder weapons. Jet fighters, V-2 rockets, Tiger II tanks weighing 70 tons. Americans built what's less impressive. Radio stations, phone lines, coordination systems, wonder weapons lost, systems won. History loves irony. German generals dreamed of superhuman, of soldier who's stronger, faster, braver than everyone else, of tank that's impenetrable, of aircraft faster than sound. Americans created super army, where every soldier is ordinary, every tank average, every aircraft standard. But together, they were invincible, because they were connected. This is lesson not just for military. This is lesson for everyone. Individual mastery matters, but coordination matters more. Heroism has meaning, but system has greater meaning. One genius can make breakthrough, but team with good communication will change world. Sherman wasn't best tank of World War II. It was most connected, and that made it deadly. Let's return to beginning, to that battle. Tiger versus 5 Shermans. German gunner looks through scope, sees easy targets, smiles. He doesn't know Sherman's already transmitted his coordinates. That attack plan is coordinated, that in 4 minutes his tank will be burning. He thinks he's fighting against 5 opponents. Actually, he's fighting against system, against network, against army that sees him, hears him, coordinates his destruction. He has no chance, even with best tank in world, because this is no longer war of tanks. This is war of information, and information always wins. SCR 508 weighed 30 kilograms, fit in box size of suitcase, cost $500. It changed outcome of World War II. It changed future of all wars. It changed very concept of what it means to be army. Germans built best tanks. Americans built best system. System won, because in war, victor isn't who hits harder. Victor is who hears and speaks faster.